Hello, and welcome to the Alchemists Inkwell.
This is your spiritual podcast for grounded people.
I'm Emily.
I'm KristaLyn.
Yeah, we spent most of our time dedicated to recording, just chatting about a bunch of random stuff. So we're gonna catch up on this.
Yeah. Well, so we were chatting about a bunch of stuff because a bunch of stuff is happening back to back, and we need to be on the same page because a lot of scheduling is being adapted to trips that are coming up. And Emily and I are going to be spending a lot of time in the same space in Greece soon, but we want to make sure that we have everything that we need for everyone else recorded before then. So we had a little bit of a strategy session as well.
Soon meaning next week.
Next week, like a week from tomorrow.
Soon meaning a week from literally tomorrow. From when we're recording this, from when you're listening to it, a week from the day that you're listening to it.
Yeah,
And I will say when we get back from Greece, so we're probably gonna like preface this, we're probably gonna have like 1 week where we're gonna do like a replay or something like that for you guys, because we'll be in Greece and can't really record and get that uploaded very easily. But when we get back from Greece, we'll probably do an episode of just like recap for you all. So even if you can't travel with us to Greece, you'll understand what it's like to travel with us if you want to travel with us in the future, which will be really fun. I'm excited to see what comes up.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be really cool. I can't see a lot when I try to look into the energy, which usually means it's like a surprise that I'm supposed to just handle it as it comes, which is usually something that's very up leveling. So
yeah. I know I feel very, very similarly in that sort of vein of like, okay, what are we doing? Like, what can I look at? And only over the last literally like 2 days have I started getting like the feeling when I look at it, which is really interesting. Where I'm like, oh, okay, this is the feeling we're getting. Awesome. Now I'm finally like piecing those pieces, like connecting those dots, which is really fun and exciting.
Still have to pick the journal I'm going to take on the trip with me.
Mine has sunflowers on it.
Oh, nice.
I'm bringing that. Yeah. So, we are going off of the poll that was in the Patreon. So if you guys don't know, our patrons get to vote on our episode topics. And we're going to talk about fun and easy, like accessible real world ways to work on expanding your spiritual and psychic abilities, kind of in your day-to-day life stuff, just kind of around.
Magic is all around you. How to use it.
Yeah. And honestly, we've talked like in previous episodes and stuff a little bit about, like everyday magic and finding magic in the ordinary. And like, yes, that, but we're also talking in this one just more about like almost like training techniques, like skills for when you're wanting to like really practice and tune in. That's something that we're really focusing on.
Yeah. And it can be something that you walk as much as you talk or learn or whatever. Doing is going to get you so much further than reading up on things or finding techniques or whatever. Those are really great springboard things to start with, because you'll find something that works, but finding what works for you and adapting it. Every time I learned a new healing modality, one of the things I realized was my last healing modality is going to get better because I know this one, and this one is going to get tweaked by whatever I decide to tweak it with as I grow. So like I ended up blending everything into my own version of a healing modality after a while, because I got so in tune with the energy and with the way things worked and my guides and the guidance that I would receive, that it was like, okay, all of these work, they do function and they will help heal. But for me as a healer, this is my ride. This is my way of doing things. And that goes with your intuition and your skills in that sense as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will also say it's kind of a perfect week to talk about this. This is something I even mentioned in like my forecast for the week. This week was like, hey, pay attention to whatever phrases and stuff get stuck in your head this week, because that's obviously something relating to you that you need to know, whether it's someone else who shared their experience with something or someone told you something or you saw a video about whatever, like just pay attention to those things. So that's like the first technique I kind of want to offer, especially when you're working on developing your abilities in like a real world way. Play with your guides in that way. Be like, all right, guides, like today I need to hear something that I need to hear. And then set that intention. And at the end of the day, be like, what did I hear today that I needed to hear? And actually like look back, and whatever pops into your head first is gonna be like, oh, that thing, that's right. Cool. And you can write that down or you can simply acknowledge it. But that's like a really simple way to do some like real world training stuff, because it starts a dialogue between you and your guides. And everyone who's ever worked with me in any capacity knows that I am a big proponent of making it a conversation with your guides and not asking Santa to bring you something for Christmas. So that's helpful.
And in addition, one of the things that I find, coming from my more religious background, everybody was waiting for God to speak to them and just waiting for God to speak to them. And I'm just like, have you asked? Have you said something? Have you put in the, and often the belief that goes along with this is, who am I to ask God for a favor? Like, God's so busy. That when I was doing readings on the phone, every time I would do the, have you asked? Have you talked to God? What's going on? Well, he's so busy with everybody else. He is omnipresent. He is everywhere. He is atoms. He is whatever you want to decide, but that's everywhere all the time. So of course, with you and with everyone else, like, it's okay to have and claim your own space with your connection to the divine, however you relate to it. And
Absolutely.
so, of course, even in astrology, you can identify in astrological magic your diamond, like diamond without the D. It is your spirit that is here to keep you either, there's a debate of like, do they keep you on track? Do they nudge you on track? Do they make sure you do what you came here to do? Whatever it is, kind of guardian angel-esque, right? And so we believe in that easily enough. And if it's easier to believe that, talk to your guardian angel, talk to your guide, talk to the version of the divine consciousness that embodies itself and emanates to be able to be relatable to you. That's kind of how I see. I think we are all emanations of it in some way. That's like my personal belief there. But again, your guides are the part that makes it relatable to you. So go ahead and use that. It's there for you. It's the other sock to your pair. I don't know why that had to be said, but I could not say it.
Well, it reminds me the other day, what were we watching? I think we were watching Queen Charlotte on Netflix, which I love everything Bridgerton. So
yeah, same.
Anyway.
For anybody out there who's like me though, if you watch Queen Charlotte, go on Does the Dog Die and find any triggers you might have. Because it set me off, and fortunately my husband was able to like say, look down now, okay, it's over, and then I can enjoy it.
Yeah, no, there's some trigger stuff. Anyway, but I forget what we were watching and someone said something and I just out of nowhere was like, well, that sounds like internalized Christianity, and I was like, what the fuck? So now it's my new phrase for everything. Instead of internalized misogyny, which is also something I use, it's now going to be just like, oh, that's some internalized Christianity. I've used it in readings since then. Like, because it's so deep and it's so prolific, especially in our like Western culture and society. I can't speak for Eastern culture and society because I haven't spent a lot of time there. And I know that there's a heavy Christianity presence in that space as well. I'm not trying to say that there isn't. I just can't speak for that. But yeah, so if you're hitting limiting beliefs that you're like thinking, like I have to wait for my guides to talk to me or anything like that, that is some internalized Christianity, and I would take something to look at that because that's not the case.
Yeah, I think one of the first and foremost things that's going to help you exercise in your everyday life your psychic abilities is realizing that there is a table where these spirits and guides and people sit, and there is a chair that is yours. You're not like the butler standing behind them or anything like that. You are at the table. It is a team effort, and you need to fill your place at the table. Otherwise the team doesn't work.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So that's one really easy way to train to do stuff. When it comes to working with your magic in a tangible way, using your guides is always going to be really, really helpful, just because they're your safe space in a spiritual capacity. Like that is your safe zone. You know that they're coming with your best intentions in heart. Like that is the energy there. That being said, like they don't need to approve of your behavior. You're not looking like seeking approval in that space, but beside the point. So a lot of the things that I always recommend for training stuff is like bounce stuff off of your guides. You really want to pay attention to like what clairsenses are strong for you. How do you figure that out? Well, you think about all of the different magical things that have happened to you throughout your life, whether that's seeing repeating numbers, whether that's all of a sudden you had a prophetic dream about something, whether you felt someone's anger before they actually expressed it. I mean, all of the different magical things. And then you want to think about how those magical things actually showed up. How do they actually show up for you? Like, did you hear someone's anger before they said it? Did you see it? Could you physically feel it? Could you taste it? Whatever. And that's how you're going to start to realize what are your strongest psychic senses. And so with using real world training stuff, you want to kind of pay attention to some of those really strong psychic senses. I'll also say, when it comes to like real world kind of training stuff, make it fun and playful, like genuinely make it playful. Ask for the next song that comes on the radio to have some sort of message for you in it. And then when that song comes on, find the message based on how it energetically feels. And then ask for validation and then look out for that validation. That's a really simple way, again, to test out your own psychic abilities because you're deciphering what the message is and tuning in a really safe, exchange with your guides. I'll also do, especially on days where I am stressed, I will do, and we're kind of doing an exercise like this with the people that are going to Greece with us. So I will do kind of like scavenger hunts almost, where I'll be like, okay, something in this store that I'm going into is about to validate me. And I don't know what it is, but I'm looking out for it from my guides. And so it will be usually something that's funny or something ridiculous will happen. I'll be like, well, there was that came up. But even when we talked to Camden, he was talking about how you can like find runes in nature, like go on a rune hunt out in nature if you're going on like a hike or something, which is a really, really fun thing to do as well. That'll also test your intuition. Because then if you're like, ooh, I saw this validation or I saw this rune, etc., then you can be like, what does it mean? And that's when you tune in and can really start practicing on it as well.
Yeah. And for reference, that's our episode that we did interviewing Camden Maurer, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And that is an episode that you can go back and listen to about runes. Yes. Runes is in the title. But I totally love this because it is so hard to doubt. And it's so impressive and it's exciting when it happens. When I got a really important message, I was like walking in Jerusalem, talking about internalized Christianity, but I was walking in Jerusalem, and a lot of people know I talk to the energy of Jesus a lot. So I was talking to Jesus and kind of doing like what you did with Lacusta, like what actually happened? Is this actually a place? All that stuff. And I got a really important message that day that I could not believe even after a lot of practice in this. So I gave the assignment to my mom, my dad, and my husband. I said, I need each of you to ask for a sign. I'm not telling you why. I'm not telling you what. Ask for a sign that you come up with and you let me know when you've seen it. And by the end of the walk that we were on, they had each seen their sign, which validated then my message that I was unable to share with them, so that I got outside of I was as empirical as I could think of being. But even on a daily thing, I have a family member who was in Costco and they walked past something and it fell on the floor and they put it back up and they were like, they walked past it again. And it fell off again. And they said, okay, well, I'm going to walk past this one more time. And if I'm supposed to buy it, it's going to fall off again. They walked out and it basically like jumped at them. So they bought the thing. And they were so excited to tell me about it because in the family, I'm the most inclined toward these kinds of things, and making sure you tell someone, I think, is another really helpful thing. Journal it, record it before and after something happens. Like, I think this is going to happen. When the thing that actually helped me bust my own doubt in my gifts was I was meditating. I got a message. I do this all the time. I set myself up. So I said to my dad, it may never happen. It may be nothing. I could be a total fraud, but this is what the message I got about this Saturday. That Saturday, something important really did happen. And dad knew that I predicted it because he knew before. And so I had a third party who was able to say, yeah, I was there. You actually did say that. It's very helpful. So just know yourself, know what what's going to be necessary to help you trust you.
Yeah. And if you don't have a person that you can do that with, record a video on that day. So it's dated and just be like, hey, this is what I think is going to happen. Journal. Here's my intuition. I'm checking it. That way it's dated. And if you needed to, for any reason, prove that you said it or whatever to someone, then you have that because it's there. So that can be really, really helpful. I highly agree with that. That's also how Weston does all of his life, is like entirely by like synchronicities and things like that. Like, oh, this fell off the shelf, so I had to buy it. Like, that is 100% how he goes through everything. What I will also say too, if you want to develop a specific psychic gift, so I'm not talking about a specific psychic clair or a psychic sense, because those you can apply to any psychic gift. But if there's a very specific gift you want to develop, whether it's like seeing auras or chatting with ghosts or whatever, do things that don't require other people to validate, but that your guides can validate for you. So for example, if you're like, oh, I really want to practice seeing auras. Okay, well, you never want to go into someone else's energy without their permission, but an aura is just a color that people give off, right? Or multiple colors that they give off. So go through the grocery store and see if you can see people's auras, and whatever your initial ping is for whatever their colors are, just note it and then ask your guides to validate that for you and let them validate it. It doesn't have to be validated by the person. If you want to talk to ghosts, go into your local coffee shop or go into, one of the oldest buildings in your town and then just do a little scan and see what you feel. See if somebody pops up, try to talk to them. If you doubt that conversation, If you're like, okay, I think that was a thing that just happened. Awesome. Ask your guides for validation and they will validate it for you. You can get all the validation and reassurance that you need in order to continue developing and working on your abilities, but it doesn't have to come directly from other people. It can still come from your guides, your team, etc. And with that too, whoop, where'd it go? I had a point and then it just wiggled away.
While you
go,
search
because
for that, I want to
something.
bring up, you can find it with a Google search too. When we
Mhm.
were at that one house where we used to hold our Forgotten Storytellers retreats, we contacted
Mhm.
right, and validated everything through articles that we were able to find simply through Googling about this person.
Yeah.
So again, you
Which we
can
talked
find,
about in an episode. If you
we
want a
did,
deeper, I
yeah.
forget which episode it was.
Yeah.
If anyone remembers which episode it was, please comment it under the YouTube. Any
Yeah.
of our longtime listeners will remember. It's the one where we talked about Kate. Her name's
Yeah.
Kate. That was the
Yep.
ghost.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
She was amazing.
Hmm. I don't know what I was gonna say. It's gone. So apparently I wasn't supposed to say it. But that is okay.
I was hoping that
happens.
talking about Kate would let it come back around.
I know, but it literally just like whoop, which happens often.
It's too sacred for you to share, Emily.
Yeah, obviously.
It's like, how to tap into your psychic skills in your daily life 102 instead of 101. So maybe later.
Oh,
Hey.
got there. It's also a really, really fabulous time. This isn't exactly what I was going to say. I'm still missing like half of it, but I got a little bit of it. So we're going to talk through it and see if the rest comes in. And if not, I'm just going to let it go. It's also a really awesome time to follow the synchronicities. And what I mean by that is like literally let some of your big decisions or let life stuff come with synchronicity, like follow while you're supposed to be led. It's a little bit of letting go of the reins of some stuff, but this is a really awesome way to practice your intuition. I'm not saying completely change your whole life based on one number popping up that's repeated, but I am saying if you're like, okay, I don't know what I should do today, let that be open. Be like, well, I'm going to start by going to the store and then let the next synchronicity come in and let the next, like just following the path. Like there's a way to actually like read and tune into that. Pay attention to like repeating things, pay attention to like, oh, someone popping up you haven't seen in a while, say yes to opportunities, those kinds of things. It's a really cool time to do that right now as we step into this kind of summertime in the Northern Hemisphere. It's a really cool energy to embrace, which is not the entirety of what I was going to say, but I guess that's where we're at. Also play with dream space stuff. That's another really easy real world technique to like practice your abilities. Dream space is always great. Asking for specific things to happen in your dreams or getting a specific piece of clarity or something and then checking in on that in the morning. That will just kind of remind you of some magic stuff existing. It's setting up your space, reorganizing your space based on energy is a really easy way to tune in to your energetic and psychic abilities. To, even if you're organizing just like a bookshelf or you're organizing your desk or something like that, just go based off of energy and be really intuitive with it. The other thing is when in doubt, I always recommend singing or toning or something like that when you're doing any of those exercises. It's so connective and it really helps.
Yeah, just sing whatever comes out. It doesn't have to be words.
No.
And if it is words, listen to what you're singing. But also one of the things that I recommend, because I know we're going to have to move on to the question soon, find a tool that you love that you want to do. Like for me, it's obviously astrology. I really love it. It has shaped my spiritual worldview more than I expected it to. I know a lot of people use tarot and all these things. They're tangible tools that you can build a relationship with your energy through. And it's basically like your cell phone to whatever version of divinity or whatever it is that you're trying to connect to. And it really helps because you get interested in it and it's something you can do. So it has like an event that goes along with it. Sitting down and looking at a chart keeps me in my mode, sitting down and pulling cards keeps you in that connection. And it's something that you can remember to do. And it feels a little bit more like you're present with it sometimes. For me, I used to be the person who was like, well, I could just do it intuitively. Why would I use a tool that's like a training wheels or something? I was wrong. And then that was like more than 10 years ago. But now it's like, no, this is the get out of my own head. This is the stop letting your biases get involved. This is the understand the person in front of you and get more context. There's so many validations that come through using tools if you feel called to them and play around with them. One of the most amazing tools that I ever used when I was trying to just up level my own psychic ability, I had a pendulum. I held it over my hand and I would say, spin clockwise, stop, spin counterclockwise, stop. The fact that it responded blew my mind and helped me remember that magic is there and accessible, and that I'm one of the people, anybody who wants to, that I could actually access it, that I could do things with it, and that it didn't feel so like boom pow. It felt like, oh, I'm here. This is a part of who I am. I'm going to let it express.
Even muscle testing.
Mm-hmm.
Muscle testing is a
Forgot that was
perfect
even
tool.
magical. I use it so much.
I know. It's really funny when you Krista and I go to eat food, because we're both just sitting there like, what should we have? We're having this, and we're just like muscle testing about the
and I do it in front of people now, and they look at me and I'm just like, do you want to know what I'm doing? Because it's gonna be really helpful for you.
It's so helpful. It's so helpful. Even my kids now are being like, oh, are you doing the thing? I'm doing the thing. Shh. I'm testing to see what we're doing. I am a Gemini Sun Libra rising. I can't make decisions on the fly very well fucking at all. So
yeah. Well, and the Scorpio moon is going to make you obsess into every outcome. So you have to sometimes muscle test just to keep it simple.
Yeah.
That's how I do.
It's like my Gemini is like, what side of me wants to talk first? And then the Libra's like, but we need to make it fair. And then the Scorpio is like, but let's make sure we've thought about every outcome. And I'm like, this is just mean.
Yeah. Every single one of my regular clients is taught muscle testing. And like, we do that in everything, because it's one of the things, like, it's almost like my prerequisite for working with me is I'm going to teach you muscle testing, because it's going to make everything else easier from here on out. We teach it in the Forgotten Storytellers. We're going to be going over it in Greece, guaranteed.
Yep. Any of my courses, like if you've taken a digital course of mine, teach muscle testing in those.
Yeah. It's so easy. The fact that we don't use it in everyday life, it seems to me like a matter of time, but too many people would be confident. I think, if you think about why isn't this more known, probably that, because it really does help you. You'll surprise yourself with the answers too. It's not always what you think it's going to be, which is the best. I love watching people's faces when I tell them to say no and the fingers give out and they're like, wait a second. Yeah, I know.
It's a trip, especially if you do like block work. This is my favorite part of muscle testing, because if you want proof that you're actually pulling and releasing blocks, that's what muscle testing is. Like, that's what it works so well. So the first time I ever like pulled and released my own block, and my muscle test of whether I held that block changed, I was like, no, I just did that a minute ago and it was a different answer. Like, what?
Well, and when you pull a belief and you're like, oh, I don't have that, and it's like, oh, I do have that. Like, no, I totally believe I'm worth it. Oh, and then you find out, now I know it's diagnosed, it's recognized, it's whatever. Now I can act with it. I can do something. So it really is empowering as much as it is impressive.
Yeah, like genuinely super, super empowering. So anyway, those are some of the fun tools. One of my favorite things to do, and I know this sounds very interesting, but it really, really helps you to tune in and like get some just knowing pings. Narrate what's happening around you as if you were writing it in a book, like genuinely inside your head. If you're I do it in the grocery store all the time, because this is most of the time when I'm like by myself and I have time. If you're waiting in line at the grocery store, start narrating what's happening around you as if you were describing it in a book, or as if you were going to post a video about it and you're going to have to talk about it. Like, think about it in that kind of context. You will notice you get, not only will it make you a better writer, for all of our writers out there, it'll make you such a better writer, but also it's going to give you these really quick, deep pings, and you're not even going to realize that you're tuning in, because you're kind of like giving advice to yourself almost, but you're doing it in like a narration sort of format, which is really fun too. So
also, walking and talking out loud, whether you're doing it with someone or just to your guides, is going to give so much clarity for a lot of people. I highly recommend it. We need to get to the question though, because I want to make sure we answer this, and I only have 3 minutes.
I know we're running out of time. Okay. So we had an awesome question in the Patreon, and basically the question is, has either of you ever channeled crop circles or anything alien related? Yes. The first thing I said is, I was like, yeah, I actually use a deck of crop circles every single day. And so what I mean by a deck of crop circles, when I worked with Freddie Silva, he created this deck because he like studied with like actual scientific instruments, the different energetic like outputs of crop circles. And he made a deck of them. Now, he doesn't sell that on Amazon or anything. It's just for people who happen to stumble across it, is quote unquote what it's for. But it's super cool. I'm showing it on the YouTube if you want to see. They're amazing. All of the different ones, they're actual crop circles that did exist on planet.
Them just seeing them on the video.
They're incredible. If I need some extra healing, I'll find one and I'll put it on myself wherever I need that healing. That'll feel really good. But I use these literally every day. and I will put one underneath my water bottle
Mhm.
based on what energy I'm trying to channel in, and it will activate my water into that
We should
energy.
do a Patreon bonus video for the people who get the bonus video every month of you holding up
Yeah.
those cards and letting them, because they're almost hypnotic.
They're crazy cool, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I
This week we're
need.
doing a protection charm, or this
Mhm,
this month, and it will be up
mhm.
before the end of the month. I promise. It's
Yeah.
me. I'm the problem. Hi. Um, but it's so easy. It's so quick. I can't wait to show it to you, and it'll be really fun.
Yeah. So alien stuff, yes, have channeled it a bunch. Have worked with light language with different beings and stuff out there on a very personal note, has definitely channeled in alien stuff. But I deeply trust in the energy of crop circles so much that I use them to activate my water every day. And I'll definitely do a bonus video about those because
Yeah.
I love those cards. So yes, great question. We'll probably do a whole alien episode, to be totally honest. We can
Yeah.
just talk about it
Yeah. Let us
more
know if
in
that's
depth.
something you guys want. We'll put it up on the poll.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, that is this week's episode. We know it's a little bit shorter, but again, we are trying to strategize for how we're dealing with the next couple of weeks. So thank you for bearing with us on that one. Thank you, as always, to our patrons. Also, we have literally like 2 spots left in the Forgotten Storytellers. It's like a really, really small, like we're almost done. It's completely full. So if you want to pitch the Forgotten Storytellers, now is the time. We are going to close those off here pretty soon.
Mhm.
So if you have an idea for a story, or even if you just really want to write and you have a bunch of ideas for a story, just send us one and we can go in from there and help you write that book. It's going to be a really powerful cohort. We have talked about this repeatedly.
Mhm.
The energy is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
So,
It's strong.
uh-huh. But thank you all so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. We hope that you dive into all this energy and that you
Go make
go
some
make some
magic.
magic. I think that was good.
Who
I
knows?
don't know.